I haven't been this bored since that stupid drive-in movie.
is going to hurt me.
This sucks.
Hello, and welcome to a long-awaited episode of Random Movie Roulette. We finally have the return of the Varicon boys, Brandon, and for the first time joining us here, Jordan. Guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Woo! Good to be here.
It has been a total of like 1 week since I've recorded a podcast with you guys. We did a fun episode on the Gory Picture Show about freaks.
That was great.
Yeah, and so I'm really stoked to have you guys here for the first time as a dynamic co-hosting duo. If you guys aren't familiar with Varicon Video, guys, what do you guys do over there?
Brandon, do you want to take this one? It's your podcast.
Well, no, it's our podcast.
I'm just crashing on your couch.
No, I mean we revisit, as we say, forgotten and unforgettable movies from the video store era, and kind of look at them with fresh eyes. Look at them in cultural context, and also just looking back. I mean, a good example is we just did an episode on Joe versus the Volcano, and Jordan had this really great argument that he put together on how this movie from 1990 spoke to Gen Z, predating this generation of people, and it was absolutely stellar. So those are the kinds of things that we talk about.
Yeah, we work really fun dynamics, and like I bring the sort of 90s 2000 standpoints. Brandon has the 80s and 90s kind of things, and we gel together wonderfully. And we've been doing this together for a little under a year, and it's been fantastic. And we're only going to do even more cool shit in the next couple of months, a couple of years.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've always been a Varicon Video fan, and Jordan, I think even more so after you hopped on. I love hearing you guys talk about these like so specific kind of movies, these like blockbuster era fucking movies, which is why I'm glad we got to join here today to talk about the movie we're talking about. As you can see here, if you're watching the video on our YouTube channel or on twitch.tv/rmroulette, we're talking The Terminator from 1984 today, and this was chosen by one of our hosts.
This was chosen by me.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna make anyone and everyone I ever can watch this movie, whether they like it or not.
You're gonna make them also watch it 2 times in the span of a week. One time outdoors,
one time indoors, and one time where they're bound and gagged with their eyes pried.
Oh, Jesus.
Next time we're gonna watch it on our fucking telephones.
So why this movie, Jackal?
So this movie holds a very special place in my heart. I will also give a quick shout out to our friends over at Test Pattern, who did a wonderful episode on this and as a double feature with Miracle Mile by director Steve DeJarnat, who also did Sherry 2000, which we saw at the drive-in marathon when we went to see this.
Really?
Yeah, you just can't stop making people watch and do episodes about Terminator.
Yeah, no, but I didn't get to do that episode with them, and I wanted to say my piece and open my big fat mouth.
So in some way, this was your revenge host pick, but you just weren't taking the revenge out on us.
It's not even revenge. I don't hold any contempt.
No, of course not.
None whatsoever. No, I'm just kidding.
We love the Test Pattern guys so much, and they just did a great episode on the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, whenever they do those like real true crime episodes, they're always like the ones that are like the most fascinating.
They're fucking
to me.
bops every single time.
Can you imagine?
Even though I can't stand true crime, I do not engage with it at all. I think I don't like it, but I really do appreciate the approach that they take with it, and how they make it interesting, and they make it respectful. That's the thing that I think that really turns me off about true crime stuff a lot of the time, is that it just feels very trashy and exploitative, and they never take that route at all.
Yeah, but this Golden State Killer, I can only imagine what podcasters in the Terminator universe must have thought looking back to May 1984 as one man mowed through a police station. But what does Terminator mean to me? It was my first rated R movie. It was arguably my first horror movie. First pair of breasts, first
which I'd say, like, if this
many things.
Yeah, Jack, if these are the first titties you ever saw, like, maybe I can understand where you're like, hey, maybe these aren't for me.
Yes, it was one.
Okay,
Listen,
listen, I'm not trying to come out of the gate here and criticize Linda Hamilton's breasts. But yeah, I think this is a very specific. It's not a commentary on her body at all. What a weird scene. It's a really sad, upsetting sex scene. And I think that's the like, what a weird associations you probably have with nudity if that very, like, upsetting sequence is your first exposure.
It explains a lot.
But I mean, it's not necessarily a hot and steamy movie to begin with. Well, actually, maybe it is. Since the beginning shots a naked, buff Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he is literally steaming.
The middle-aged women at the drive-in were fucking hooting and hollering.
Over that.
Oh my god.
Sure. But
savages.
One thing I will also say is that it does connect with Varicon, because it was, of course, a DVD rental from Blockbuster on a Thursday night that I had to ask my mom's permission to get, and I got it, and it forged me ever since. So yes, that is my attachment to Terminator, and now I probably watch it once every 3 weeks.
Yeah, because I was like, I can't believe that we're watching this twice in the span of like a week, and he's like, yeah, usually I don't wait this long.
Yeah, usually I take 8 days, and then it's finally time to rewatch Terminator for the millionth time.
There's never a time that I'm not. This may well be my desert island movie, if not at least it's certainly. Yeah. If I got a pick of like 5, it would definitely be in there.
And it's interesting because it's one you've kind of like always been on the verge of like sitting me down to make me watch, right? And like you do this a lot, and that's not a complaint. But Jack will fucking sit you the fuck down and be like, hey, listen, like we got to get this done. You have to see this. And 9 times out of 10, he's completely correct. And by the time you're done, you're glad you sat down with Jack.
Yeah, on that 1 out of 10 time, it's usually a James Bond movie. So.
Well, that 1 out of 10 times with me was actually Miracle Mile. But, I understand why everybody else likes it.
Yeah, Lewis, I'm definitely, and Mike too, definitely going to get them into the Miracle Mile camp. But I think Terminator is especially that movie for me because for a lot of reasons that Jacob and Tab articulated on their podcast, and I think we were all in agreement of, it's not the movie you think it's going to be because you have T2 so set in your mind. It in no way occurs to you that, hey, maybe that first movie's like a horror movie and tonally different from, everything that Terminator exists as in the cultural zeitgeist that we know of.
Yeah. I also want to just take a second, shout out the homies in the chat right now. We got Jordan, sorry, not Jordan.
We're just so used to saying we're just so used to saying that Jordan's in the chat.
Jordan's a quarter of our viewership and he's on the show.
I'm sorry.
You're killing us here, man. Now we have Cody and Mark in the chat. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. They are so excited about our guests.
Yeah, God forbid we have all 3 of them on an episode. We'll have no viewership at all.
We just don't have enough boxes on the screen would be the main problem. Where would we get the new boxes? We only have these 2 boxes for Jordan and Brandon. Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking I'm fucking up your names. Okay, you know what? We're kicking to the trailer. Guys, enjoy.
Yeah, let's go to the trailer.
Do it.
I get to eat M&Ms now.
Yes, please. They can still see and hear you, motherfucker. Don't eat M&Ms.
In this city, under cover of darkness,
Miming me learning.
someone is stalking Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor?
Yes.
Yeah. Still very wine-soaked bed. We're gonna be alright.
You're dead, honey.
What's this? Dead girl, too. Sarah Louise Connor. Is this right?
Of course, we'll have more on this late-breaking story as it comes in.
She doesn't know why, but it's her he's after.
Did you reach next girl yet? No, I keep getting answers.
Check out that you're there. I'm really scared. I think that there's somebody after me.
And no one can help her. Except for one man.
I'm Reese. It's assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination.
This isn't true. How could that man just get up after you?
It's not a man, a machine. Terminator. Underneath it's a hyper-alloy combat chassis. Microprocessor controlled. Fully armored. Very tough. But outside it's living human tissue.
They cannot make things like that yet.
Not yet. Not for about 40 years.
Are you saying it's from the future?
They came to fight. For the one woman who could save their future.
And this computer thinks it can win by killing the mother of its enemy.
One came to protect her.
I came across time for you, Sarah.
The other to kill her. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator. Inhuman. Relentless. Unstoppable. He has only one purpose. Murder.
Can you stop it?
I don't know.
And now Sarah Connor's world has become a battlefield. With her at ground zero. And the Terminator closing in. An adventure unlike anything you've ever seen before. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator.
I want you to forget.
They want you to really get it.
I can't remember if I said it or not. I wanted to make sure that I said it.
So, fun fact, despite that riveting and well-edited trailer, Orion, there's one common quote, and it's just that they really did not market the movie well enough, and that their one thing after releasing it, they were like, yeah, we wish we'd marketed this better, because it became such a hit, but it only made about, I think 30 million or so at the box office, which was not a lot, because they didn't put a lot of money into...
Yeah, maybe one of these days on Cinemarketing, I could take a look at how is this?
Statistics of the 1984.
Brandon and Jordan, I really want to know what's your relationship with this movie like before this? Whoever wants to go first, no pressure. I didn't mean to address both of you at once, then be like, you fucking figure out who talks first.
Okay, so I have, as we were talking about before this, I have more of an attachment to Terminator 2. That one was on cable a lot more than this one. And then maybe, I don't know, somewhere in my late teens, high school era, I caught the majority of this one on cable, and I remember enjoying it. And then I met Jack, and I began to give this one another chance because I remember the second one blowing it way out of the water. And I needed, because obviously Jack can vouch for this movie like no one else. And so I actually didn't get my chance to really rewatch it like this until preparing for this podcast, sadly. But I see some of what he was talking about.
He seems slightly less crazy to me.
He seems like he may have an idea or two.
What about you, Brandon?
It's funny. I rewatched this last year solely based on Jack's Letterboxd review of this movie. And wow, it was just an entirely different experience from what I remember like when I saw this as a kid, because I came to it by way of Terminator 2. I saw that first when it came out and had that on VHS. But so we rented Terminator, and I was like, this is not the same thing. This is kind of dark and gritty. I can't really see what's happening here. I can't follow the story. And I didn't really like it all that much compared to Terminator 2. And of course, it would be a long time until we got Terminator 3, which, yeah. I just pretend that the first two are the only two that exist.
So does every new studio that tries to make a new Terminator movie.
Yes. Exactly.
monopolize itself.
So, Jack, you're changing hearts and minds with this movie.
Yeah,
it sounds like.
Yeah, But when I rewatched it today, just to kind of put together a few additional notes, I was just surprised at like watching it through a new lens of like being able to see, some of these slasher tropes that are in there, and some of the inspiration that that James Cameron brought from by way of John Carpenter and that sort of thing. And so I don't know, there's just a lot more that I can a lot more layers that I can see, based on, I guess, just having matured, as a viewer. But yeah, I put this right up there with T2, maybe slightly just a hair under T2, but that's me, just because I have that nostalgic attachment to T2. But
well, I will say that despite Jack's hardened efforts, I'm still firmly on the train that I think Terminator 2 is my preferred movie of the two. It was the first one that I had seen. I actually just, for some reason, as a teenager, decided to blind buy Terminator 2 on DVD.
Pretty safe blind buy overall. I mean, you're not
I was back
risking it.
It was at the age where I was discovering what movies are, and I was looking at like whatever movies that people said were good, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll see it. And then I saw Terminator 2, and I loved it. I thought it was a great action movie. And then I eventually watched like the first one, like I guess a couple years later on, and I was like, oh yeah, this is still good. It's like a little less exciting than the second one is, and I don't think I've seen either of those movies since that age until this one, which I've watched now probably more times than I've ever in my life. I've watched it more times in the past week than I have in my entire life. But no, I think watching this on a rewatch without having Terminator 2 clouded over you, I think you do gain an appreciation for how much they were able to do with the little amount of budget that they had, and like the small scale they were working on, and like the different tone that it takes, and it's not as jarring because you're not like mentally comparing it to what Terminator 2 is. But yeah, no, I think that this is certainly like, for people like you, Lewis and Jack, like if you're more into like the horror, and especially Jack more into like the tech noir, like crime movie, like this is certainly like that genre. This is certainly more like up your alley, probably.
Yeah, again, I'll say, like, and we talk about this a ton also in our commentary track that we just recorded like right before this episode. If you go to patreon.com/rmroulette, you can subscribe there. $5 and up gets you some bonus content, including commentaries for all of the movies that we cover on the show. We just recorded one for Terminator, and I talk about a lot that like most of my impressions or like my opinions that I held before this movie were really way more informed by Terminators 2 and 3 than they were by this actual movie. And so what I was expecting when I watched it for the first time since I was a child at this drive-in, which we're also going to get into that in a little bit, and
we have some stories from
that particular experience. I was expecting more of a dumb action movie than like this really fun sci-fi slasher, and I was really, really happy with it, because it's just it always felt so detached from my interests. Like there's been so many fucking Terminator movies that have come out since I've like been into movies, and they've all been dog shit except for maybe Dark Fate,
potentially Dark Fate, and.
But
I have kind words for the Sarah Connor Chronicles, but that's a TV show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was glad to find that this is just like a really good time, like at the movies or even in your fucking living room. A lot of this is hinged on, I think, performances that have now become like so referenced in all forms of media. That it kind of gets away from the quality that you're actually getting in this movie. How do you guys feel about the two? I mean, I guess we'll say three.
Three.
Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the guy that plays
Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn.
He's
great.
Nothing. Doesn't ring a bell for me at all.
Star of the best episode of The Mandalorian, Michael Biehn.
Oh, sure.
Nice.
So anyone want to?
I will say this one, I was wondering how much of a star was Schwarzenegger at this time, and how much of a novelty was it that he was a villain?
It was pretty novel.
First Conan.
Yeah, he had only done the first Conan movie, really, and a small cameo in Robert Aldrich's The Long Goodbye.
Yeah, where he takes off his shirt. Yeah,
as a goon, and otherwise he was just really Mr. Universe. And I don't think he wanted to take this villain role, but he was persuaded to by Cameron or something. And of course, it's well known that O.J. Simpson was courted for the role, and
nice.
Lance Henriksen. The movie was sold to Orion because Lance Henriksen went into the Orion offices dressed as the Terminator and intimidated the executives until Cameron arrived to pitch the movie. But yeah, I mean, this was kind of the big star maker for Schwarzenegger next to Conan.
Yeah. I could also imagine his like rising star in popularity is kind of also what convinced them to pivot and make him the hero of Terminator 2.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
My mind is
the
still...
don't breathe route. Let's make this likable rapist the hero.
Yeah. So I'd read that Cameron originally imagined his friend and collaborator Lance Henriksen in the title role.
Oh, I can totally see that.
Yeah, but then I think Mike Medavoy, who was at Orion at the time, he was like, hey, I just saw these guys at a party and I promised them roles. So I got it cast. Listen, Schwarzenegger is Kyle Reese, O.J. Simpson is the Terminator, but Cameron, from what I read, was just like, no, that just shot that down immediately. But then he met with Schwarzenegger and was like, this guy looks like, looks like a human Panzer tank. It's like, this guy's the Terminator.
Sure.
So a lot of interesting lore around this movie.
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger is Reese?
I guess across time for you, Sarah.
I think also because I assume that they probably would have wanted him to be the hero if he was like a big action star, but he wasn't at that point, so it's not like that would even cross their minds, I guess.
I'll be honest.
Linda Hamilton in half in the sex scene.
I can't imagine, and I know there are plenty of movies where it happens, but like I don't wrap my head around Arnold Schwarzenegger as like the lead love interest in a movie. Like that's just fucking crazy to me. Like that's crazy talk. I know he's been in a ton of movies since, and people are like, that one zombie movie he was in, he gave like a really touching performance. I'm sure to an extent for him that's true, but like, God, I don't know. I think Robot is the most appropriate fucking role you could give this guy. Like it's perfect for him, and it like I had such a hard time even talking, I think, about his performance in this movie, because like I think he's doing like what is technically a bad acting job, but like it's working for this thing for this movie. Like it's wooden, it's robotic, and like that's exactly what this calls for. And he's so physically intimidating. His actual acting doesn't really fucking matter at that point.
I will say, at least by the time we get to Terminator 2, where he actually does have to give like an essence of like emotion in the performance, I think it actually sells it in some scenes, like the very end when he has to sacrifice himself.
Exactly.
I believe him. Like I believe that it even says that he's a robot, and he's like, I can't cry. It's something I can never do.
I know now why you cry. It's something I never do.
I should have expected at least a few Schwarzenegger impressions in this episode.
I mean, come on, it's there with the bill.
Yeah, fair enough.
You book me, you get a Schwarzenegger.
But Linda Hamilton is actually, I think, the person I hear more about in regards to this movie than Arnold Schwarzenegger. She's like the this kind of like prototypical female action hero. And I think she's wonderful in this. I had only really known of her because of Terminator Dark Fate, just like the marketing campaign for that. And I was like, oh, she looks exactly the same in 1984.
I feel like just the reason why her character, at least now that we have the sequel, looking back, that T1 and T2, I mean, they're okay. How do I put this? T2 is not just a great sequel, but it's also a very good companion film in that it elevates a lot of what's going on in the first movie, and it completes, well, if we disregard the others for a minute, it really gives Sarah Connor this great arc where she starts off as this kind of this lowly, unassuming waitress in this diner in L.A., and she has to take on this role of becoming, this fighter and this leader of this resistance and stuff, and just to see like her transformation from this film to the second one, like how she gets from A to B is, I don't know. I think that really demonstrates a lot about, like, I guess the caliber of her character.
Yeah, man. There's this moment early on. I think this movie has like 3 like really intense exposition scenes, and I think one of those works really, really well. It's like right after this huge chase, and they're in a Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor are in a car together, and he now has to explain time travel and all the nonsense that's happening to her. And one, I think they're like you buy their chemistry like pretty quickly. Like I don't think that Michael Biehn, is that his name?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Michael Biehn playing Kyle Reese is like, giving any Oscar-worthy performance. It's very melodramatic and it's very soapy, but it kind of fucking works. And I think in that scene you get you get this picture of Linda Hamilton as this really tough and like really reserved heroine. Like she hasn't like fully come out of her shell yet, but like you can kind of see it forming there, and I think it's really effective and really solidified. And all I can think about when I go back and see any James Cameron movie, I have to look at every female character now and be like, well, how does this compare to Wonder Woman? Because of James Cameron's like ridiculous comments about Wonder Woman after it came out, and he was
not like Wonder Woman is like the high standard for what female characters should be.
No, but it was part of that conversation, right? Like it was a huge part of that conversation when it came out, and so James Cameron came out like
she's not as good as Linda Hamilton or as Ellen Ripley, but like. And sure, that may be true, but like you're not the person who should fucking say that.
And in that exposition scene where we're finally like about to like learn something about Linda Hamilton's character, they're like, all he talks about is the fact that she had a kid in the future, and I was like, are we really? Yeah. Is that what we're doing? But like that kind of doesn't turn out to be the case. Like I think, as much as those other 2 exposition scenes really slow things down, when you get to know like what her importance is to Kyle Reese and to, I guess, by extension, John Connor, it's really interesting. Yeah. I have no memory though of Terminator 2. Brandon, you say that like it really colors it. Like, do you think it fundamentally changes how that first movie is perceived, or do you think it's just like a nice like little additive to it?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of Sarah Connor's character, I think it shows, I guess, like, where her journey started, and like because when we meet her in T2, I mean, she is this kind of hardened,
traumatized from like
traumatized. Yeah. She's in this, she's in this room, and Dr. Silberman he's kind of like her, like Dr. Chilton, in Silence of the Lambs. It's like, this is my prized patient, and she believes all this hokey shit, and so I wish that he would have gotten a little bit more comeuppance, but there are some things that carry over, I think, that are presented in a new and interesting way in the sequel that I don't think works as well on its own in the first film.
Yeah, I think that the dynamic of the arcs of her character in 1 and in 2, whereas 1, she starts out as this like very unassuming, innocent, almost kind of damsel, and then it has to like through these events like become tough and hardened and defend herself.
Yeah.
And we're in 2 where she starts as like tough and hardened and closed off and cold, and then eventually has to learn to trust the Terminator, this figure that like she's associated with like death and violence and like stalking her
and literally her trauma. I would say one thing that I think also helps with T1 and that we talk about a little in our commentary is that, you had mentioned this, Brandon, that this has a lot in common with John Carpenter and Halloween and stuff. And there's also a really good parallel between John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's relationship and Gail Ann Hurd and James Cameron's relationship. Both this being kind of the big movies that made them, both being romantic partners in which the woman's the producer and the man is the director, and both in which the producers kind of took over some of the script writing in terms of writing the female characters in the dialogue to make them feel more believable and grounded and stuff. And I think, like seeing Sarah's relationship with Ginger and Matt and seeing that she's like a person that can cut loose and stuff, I think that definitely helps her more as a character, and it gives more of a dimension to her transformation to that T2 character and does a lot of legwork. I think if Cameron had done it on his own, she just would have been a very sad person who then just, is saved by Kyle Reese and like becomes strong and like must fight and do this stuff, which is what I think Ripley's kind of like. And I think someone had pointed this out. I think there's a comedian named Caitlin Laurie who had pointed this out in a post she'd done on her Instagram page, that like female characters in action movies and like as scientists and stuff are like always kind of like very hard and cold, because if they're gonna be tough, then they can't, have any sense of fun or family or whatever. They have to be like super rigid and this and that. And I think Ripley
and then their arc is about like
that sometimes.
Yeah, and then their arc is like how they have to learn to love a child.
Learn to love
that's the only thing women should be
or
allowed
a child. And like Sarah is drawn, as like an actual person who like likes to go out and goes to movies and gets pizza, and maybe she has a boyfriend that ditches her. That boyfriend,
she's not like other girls.
That boyfriend is also very lucky. He made a good choice not going out with Sarah Connor that night. But yeah, no. So I think Gail Ann Hurd's contribution to the script and making Sarah that character definitely helps that transformation to the T2 badass even more.
Yeah, I was also going to say the aspect of, you were talking about like the exposition, and I was thinking like, I think from a script writing perspective, the most impressive aspect of this movie is just how non-reliant on dialogue that it is. Like, it is very visually informed a lot, especially for like the first like 45 minutes or so, where you don't really get an exposition dump until that scene where Kyle Reese has to like, explain everything to Sarah, and it would make logical sense at that moment that he needs to tell her all of this information right now. And it doesn't, the first half of the movie also isn't concerned with explaining all of the sci-fi future lore to you. It just kind of allows you to accept like this premise of the robot coming back, and then like just getting into it as just like a modern day sci-fi stalker thriller, and then explains like its greater lore later on as like, you get to know the characters and stuff, which I feel like that's where I feel like a lot of sci-fi and a lot of like fantasy stuff, where the lore kind of bogs it down, where it's like, if I have to know all of this going in, then it feels like homework. But whereas like if I have characters that I can get attached to and then like learn about the world as they're learning about it, then it makes it feel a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, Jordan, how did you feel about the pacing of this?
Yeah, I think that, I was gonna counter, not counter, but I was gonna carry on of.
Oh no, please go for it.
No, because what you were saying, Mike, about just with world building and the lore, I was going into it, and I as we saw more and more of the future and of the admittedly lower budget scenes of where Kyle is coming from, I kept thinking it would be a better movie if we kept most of the action sort of grounded in the present and only used really the explanations to sort of give us the context. Because
I think Lewis, you were saying that after we saw the movie for the first time at the drive-in, where you were like, I didn't expect to see the future in this movie.
I really thought it was just going to stay like super in the present, to the point like I didn't think we were going to have any flash forwards to 2029 or whatever it was.
But I think you actually like the future stuff, Lewis.
I do. I like the future stuff in the like exactly in the capacity that they use it. And it was something I was saying when we were at the drive-in, where we sat down like 30 minutes in. There's that moment, or probably like closer to like 15 to 20 minutes in. There's that moment where John Connor, he's already in.
It's Kyle Reese.
Sorry, fucking Kyle Reese is already in the present day. The guy. He's in the present day, and he just sees like these tank-like wheels of a tow truck or some sort of construction machine, And I remembered like at that moment I was just like, I really hope this is going to cut back to like the future thing again, and we're gonna like get some like insight into like maybe some PTSD he would have from this like horrific sounding war, but not really expecting it to happen at all. Like it was just like a hope. Like, and when it happened, I was like, oh, like this is exactly the kind of movie I would want. Like, I don't dig a lot of like hard action sci-fi stuff typically, but you frame it up like a cerebral slasher with some like oddly poignant dramatic elements. Like I'm fucking there. I'm sold. It's packaged exactly how I wanted it to be, and how like I feel like I'm at the point where I could get obsessed with it like easily. I could fall down a rabbit hole of watching this movie a lot.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, you're just fucking ruining my life.
No, I think that just for me, I think it has nothing to do with the movie or anything, but I feel like after seeing it twice in the span of like less than a week, I'm like, I think I'm good on seeing this movie for a good while now. Not because of anything like, it's just that I'm not the type of...
It doesn't speak to you.
No, I do like the movie, but I'm also, even with movies that I love, I like to take breaks in between I need to work up an appetite to want to watch it again, and I feel like having it thrust on me again so quickly does kind of make me feel like, all right, I think I've had my fill of this for a little while.
Yeah.
But it did make me much more hungry to watch Terminator 2 again, because I haven't seen it in so long. And also, I think this week we just passed the 30th year anniversary of Terminator 2, which it's funny that we're doing this one and not Terminator 2, but
thank you that.
This one's almost closer to 40 years, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Shit. But
we're close to the time where the Terminator War is supposed to be taking place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
Skynet is setting up in like Burbank or something as we speak.
I think Salvation already happened IRL.
Yeah,
sure. I don't get the reference. I don't know Terminator.
I think Genesis at one point, I think they set up that Skynet will now be an app. And I'm just like, oh god, it's not.
Oh yeah.
No, I think Salvation takes place in like 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, but I was going to say that I think I was in Jordan's place maybe when I watched the movie for the first time. That I was like, oh, the future stuff, I'm really not feeling it. As the years have gone on, I've really grown to love the future stuff, and I definitely think, Cameron's just a very aspirational, like, he wants to go as big as he can and as hard as he can and whatever. And his whole forte when he was doing stuff for Roger Corman and, loaning his talents out to John Carpenter and whoever was doing all those miniatures and things like that. And so I do really appreciate that we get it, and that we get this really vivid visualization of kind of the hell that Kyle's coming from. Yeah. But I also did want to move on to kind of the other supporting characters outside of the main three. You have Earl Bone as Dr. Silberman, who I actually believe might be a Terminator in my own potential theories.
That's the only reason he's in all three of the first ones, right?
Exactly. He's just there to fucking make everyone's life shit so no one can stop stuff in time.
Do you think they're like passive aggressive Terminators that like they don't go back to shoot people? They're just like kind of dickheads to people.
Yeah,
they're there to like ruin the public's trust and the public safety.
Yeah, they're just like pissing in the subways so it all smells bad, and like they're just like the minor inconveniences.
In Terminator Salvation,
like
not Terminator Salvation, in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, they do establish like all the other Terminators that have been like sent back to make sure stuff goes down. And I remember Shirley Manson, the lead singer from Garbage, plays a T-1000 who's like literally the head of a company that like has to make Skynet, and her whole thing is just like making sure that deals go through, and if someone's not going to sign a paper, she stabs them and impersonates them and forges their signature.
So she's a Terminator whose only directive is that she's only happy when it rains.
Yes. She is the Barbara Cochran of Terminators.
I'm so happy I got that in. That's such a cheeky thing.
Me too.
You would expect that in Varicon, but
I mean, how did everyone else feel about kind of like the supporting characters and actors and anyone that's
an old favorite of ours, Dick Miller, shows up as the gun shop owner.
Yeah,
he got a big applause at the drive-in. Which I think we made a joke is like, is that like every gun shop owner's like biggest fear is that like as soon as you sell a product to someone, they're just gonna turn around and shoot you.
Yeah.
What's stopping them?
Well, they're just gonna pick ammo right off the counter. And although I do have to say, this movie did introduce me to the one strange, weird fact about gun shops, which is you have to have all this waiting time for handguns, but the big shit you can just take with you right away.
America.
Yeah, I learned that from watching Jumanji.
Yeah. I was about to say that there's an almost exact opposite, like duplicate scene in Jumanji.
I don't know why. Listen, I've never seen Jumanji, any of them, but it's a hard movie for me to believe that there's guns in.
You've never seen Jumanji?
No.
Dude, it's a fucking blast, man.
It is a fun movie, but like, I don't know. We both went to Catholic school. They fucking showed me Jumanji a lot. They didn't show you Jumanji.
Me and Mark were watching that shit in third grade.
Jumanji.
I don't know.
I feel
Why
like
did they always show us
Genesis?
fucking Finding Nemo all the time? That's not a particularly religious movie.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Just
My fucking elementary school, Catholic school recess movie was the fucking Little Rascals, which was the worst movie. I've hated it so much. I've hated it since I was 6.
I had to watch Cliffhanger in Spanish class. Okay?
What?
With Senor
Can
Lithgow?
you fucking imagine?
Dude, we watched the Star Wars prequels in Spanish class with the Spanish subtitles. Just because...
How do you say no?
Yeah.
This is like
it's
the
just
10th.
Yeah, my friend, Anthony, my cinema marketing co-host, he went to the same high school as me, and he took Italian, and he was telling me about, like, in his Italian class, they watched, like, Bicycle Thieves and Cinema Paradiso, and I was like, in my Spanish class, we watched fucking Signs and, like, The Day After Tomorrow and the Star Wars prequels.
I actually like Signs, but okay.
Dude, I like Signs too. I like so many of that era of M. Night Shyamalan movies that it's honestly like a little embarrassing.
I'm from Philly, so I always have a soft spot for Shyamalan and his weird shit.
Do you guys like The Village?
Oh no, not that one.
Mother.
The Village? Oh man, I saw that in theaters.
Sorry.
I don't know. I haven't seen it since it came out, so I couldn't really say.
Okay.
What do you think of
I
Old?
get the. Oh wait.
It's like the dumbest title for a movie.
Old, yeah.
Old.
I don't
You're
know what
old.
the twist of that is.
I'm excited for it.
Look at yourself, old man. You've got multiple chins 'cause you're old.
Oh my god, I have to
still
get away
think-
from the Family Guy shit.
That was from SpongeBob.
Oh.
I still think the twist of Old is going to be that everybody's aging because it's the water, and they're actually the aliens from Signs. Is the prequel for them.
Oh,
I could totally buy that. I feel
You did it for Unbreakable. You could do it for this.
yeah.
not
And
off
then the
table at all.
gold, and then when they're old, and then they die, and they turn into the ghost from The Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah, bring it all together.
You know, to go back for a second, I want to something Jack said about the supporting cast. So I was thinking about the.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yes.
the cops or the detectives played by Lance Henriksen and Paul Winfield. Like I like their chemistry, and I like this slight police procedural element, and because I like this 70s crime thriller kind of vibe it's got, but I feel like these characters have very little to do, even though I like their characterizations. What do you think?
Especially Henriksen,
Yeah.
I mean, this is like one of the many movies I think is like a little bit too long, you know? Like I do feel like there's like a lot of like meandering that the characters do at points. Again, like I pointed those exposition scenes. There's just like times where like the whole plot comes to a complete halt so that they can talk for extended periods of time. And yes, like it's important for the time travel element of the story to like let you know what was going on in that time. But it is a lot of, saying and not showing. And I guess, again, they can only show so much of that that very expensive future that they crafted. So I can't come down too hard on them. But I do think that, it can create, I think, in the like latter half of the movie, it can create like a sense of like directionlessness from the character's part.
I will say at least for at least like the Dr. Ullman scenes where it's like, my least favorite type of trope in a lot of these like 80s movies with like sci-fi or like creature horror stuff is whenever the characters like have to go to the police and then the police just like laugh them off or don't believe them and they're like, you have to believe me, this is the and in this movie it takes the route where like they're still skeptical of them but they're like making them believe that they believe them.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
It's that how do I put it? It's kind of like the parents saying, "Oh, there's no monster under the bed. Let me show you why."
Yeah.
And because they're like
Monster Squad.
Yeah, it's just because they're like, "Oh, see, this is what we call a bulletproof vest." And she's like, "No, well, I saw the guy wouldn't have survived all this, or he didn't. I forgot the line, but he didn't show pain or something. There's always probably hopped up on angel dust or PCP or something like that. So they're trying to explain it away. And but yeah, no, it's an interesting scene when you see them with Sarah and they're reviewing the footage of the interview with Kyle Reese, and they're just cracking jokes the whole time, and it's sorry.
Yeah, I would say I do actually appreciate them being in the movie. I do understand like feeling like, oh, this isn't really necessary or whatever, but I kind of like the sensibility that, oh, Sarah calls the cops like a normal person would, instead of like horror movie logic of like, oh, everything's fine, la da da, or like, oh, all the Sarah Connors in LA are being murdered? That's weird. Should probably check that out. Like, I do appreciate Trexler, Paul Winfield's character, Lieutenant Trexler, more than Lance Henriksen, who's just there to kind of be the jackass that we've been describing.
Right.
But I do kind of like seeing him over the film, too, that, like, he is kind of the person Sarah trusts and that he has the responsibility of protecting her until he passes her kind of off to Kyle. But you kind of see his slow process of working through the mystery of like, what's going on? Why are these people dying? And then him kind of being like, okay, maybe this is real. There is one deleted scene when they're fleeing the police station and they stop and they find him like wounded and dying, and he like tells Reese to protect her, and like he believes them and all this stuff. And I definitely like his character a lot.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad they're in there. And I think ultimately the police station shootout is a good action sequence. One, because it's cool, but two, it really helps kind of elevate the threat of the Terminator to be like, hey, like the ultimate protection you could have in this scenario, the police do absolutely nothing. And like 30 whatever of them just die on the spot because this thing literally can't be stopped.
Anyone saying anything interesting in the chat? We haven't heard from the chat in a while.
Yeah. Is Mark just saying don't forget me when you're gone? Oh superstar you.
Mark says that seeing a Terminator blow away a bunch of cops in 1984 is way more of a nightmare than seeing it now. And yeah,
I was about to go there.
You're not wrong. I have much higher standards for cops in movies than I do for cops in real lives, or I just expect more and hope more from them. I haven't quite given up all entirely, and I think that's a reason why I like the cops in this movie is that they're not great. No one's buying the time travel thing, which would be the actual useful thing for them to do. But you get a clear sense that they give a shit, which is not a given in horror movies. I mean, so often the thing is you go to the police, they laugh it off, and then they move on. Just almost as if like, let's just check that off. Like they tried the police guys, it didn't work. But this felt like they were actually taking an interest. Like they knew, even though if it wasn't time travel, they knew something bad was happening to Sarah Connor, and like they felt a responsibility to actually stop that. And so when we kept cutting back to them, I wasn't quite so annoyed as I get in a lot of slasher movies where this kind of thing winds up happening, where they're all so fucking hapless and seem almost indifferent to what's going on. It's the same reason why I like the police work in Black Christmas a lot. Just a good sense of genuine care all around. We also have Cody in the chat who is trying to create an amalgamation of our podcast names, and he came up with That's Not All Gory Roulette, which those are that covers
Varicon.
A lot of them.
I forgot Varicon.
How do you work Varicon into anything?
Just put video.
Good try, Lewis.
Just put video at the
end as a separate word.
Yeah,
video is the word. Cody, so
put
close.
video. Yeah,
flew so close to the sun.
That's not all gory video roulette.
It is
video roulette marketing.
Yeah, I was gonna say put in marketing.
That's all not random gory video.
Yeah, and that our next guest will be from Cinemarketing. We'll have to spend way too much time trying to figure out what the combination Random Movie Roulette Cinemarketing name is going to be. Can't wait. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Guys, I want to carve out a little time for Brandon and Jordan just to, take a second, and I would love to hear you guys talk about how this kind of fits into the Varicon mold. If you don't, I'm sorry I sprung this on you.
Oh no,
you're good. You're good.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, well, this would have been on the shelves of virtually every video store, at one point in time in the late 90s, early 2000s. Still, I mean, this was released on VHS in 85, 88, 91, 95, and which it first came out. It was Thorn EMI, and then HBO. And so a lot of people, or different companies, distributed this on VHS. And I was actually, just before we started recording, I was looking for like the original artwork and stuff. I was looking to see what kind of title treatments they used. Thanks, Mike. You got me thinking about all the marketing here. But yeah, I mean, this, of course, Terminator 2, though, was like the big blockbuster movie, of the early 90s, of 91, that I have the strong association with, and that's what led me to the Terminator is right next to it on the shelf, so I guess I'll go watch the first one. And so yeah, I mean, I think that how it fits in is that I guess the simplest way to put it is that it sets you up for discovery, in the sense that, okay, well, this is the big movie that's just come out. Okay, and then around what is it constellated around it? Like what else is kind of in proximity to it? And then you're like, oh, well, there's a first one. So, I mean, at least back in the day, like that's the discovery was a lot more organic, I guess. Like going to the library and just browsing the stacks,
What I might add to that, though, is that, at least from my experience of scouring the shelves at my local Hollywood Video, is that for every 2-3 copies of Terminator 2 they would have there would be much less copies of Terminator 1 that they would have on the shelves, at least from my experience. Yeah. I think just like on cable, just like everywhere else, T2 was always the more accessible, the more universally available property. And even the Universal Studios ride was based off of T2 and not T1. And so you'd have to dig a lot deeper through the shelves to really find this. And once you did, you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, they marketed the shit out of T2. I mean, it was everywhere. I mean, especially on, I'm trying to think, but there were several other VHS releases that would have, like, not just a trailer for this movie, but there was one where they had like Robert Patrick in costume as the T-1000, like giving, essentially like selling you, the viewer, like, hey, run out and get your copy of Terminator 2 at your local video store.
I'm keeping all of this in mental notes for some point in the future.
Oh yeah, there's some good shit.
It's great. And I'll tell you one more thing really quickly before we move on. But Terminator 2 had a PSA. I can send this to you. It was a PSA for essentially, like, don't do drugs. But it was a guy on an operating table, and his surgeon was smoking pot, like smoking a joint in the operating room, and laughing. He's like, oh, what's the matter with you? Tonsillitis? And the guy's like, no, it's appendicitis. It's oh yeah, well, let's see if I can still make a straight line. And like puts his mask on and is about to, and he approaches with his scalpel. It's a very creepy. It's the creepiest fucking PSA I've ever seen. But that's how the VHS to Terminator 2 started. So.
I mean, the fact that
I thought it was like a PSA that was like starring someone from Terminator 2
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Arnold Breckman saying,
no, totally unrelated.
I thought surgeon, the guy doing the surgery would be the T-1000 with like the metal
scalpel arm.
Patrick would do it. So.
Yeah, well, the surgeon had a laugh that was just like Frank Gorshin or Richard Widmark in what is that? Kiss of Death?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pushing the old lady down the stairs, cutting. Yeah. Fooling Batman with a great riddle and Jill St. John as Robin.
Guys, we are getting a little long in the tooth here. Before we go, though, we have more attempts at a combination podcast.
Oh God, Cody's still at it.
Yeah, I mean, they're goddamn it, they're doing their best, and we're gonna honor it. So Cody just tries to simplify it a bit with this one, and I think this sounds arguably the cleanest. It does not include everything, sadly. This is a strictly Random Movie Roulette Varicon video crossover name, Random Varicon Roulette. Don't get what it means, but I think it works.
Or Random Video Roulette maybe would have.
Yeah.
Random
It's
Video
still RVR.
Roulette. That's Bois.
Still would fit that.
Yeah.
RVR sounds like a good... I like the acronym a lot. Mark says, okay, let me try here. The Varicon Random Movie Looney Toony Podcast Hour.
The Random Movie Looney Toony. That's a great double tongue twister thing. I like that.
Cody then follows up with, that's not Varicon's gory roulette. I think, again, Cody, if we go with video instead of Varicon, if we pull video, it's gonna... Varicon is so specific. It's the name of a video store, you know?
I always wanted to ask. I always wanted to know. And now that I got you here, what is Varicon? Where did you come up with Varicon?
Yeah, where did you come up with Varicon?
I guess the best way I could explain it is it's a combination of variety and iconic, and it's a variety of different movies, iconic movies. Right. But I don't know. I honestly, Mike, I don't remember. The truth is, it was the name of a video store in a short story I wrote 15 years ago.
Sweet.
Wow.
And I just, when I needed a name for the show, I was like, oh, why not Varicon Video? And so in my head, I already had.
You know what I would like to do? I'd like to crowdfund a fucking a real Varicon video, a video store. We should.
I think about that all the time.
Line it with all the movies we've ever done episodes on, across all the Monster Kid platforms.
So basically, the whole store would be staff picks, essentially.
Varicon Video can be the connective glue of the Monster Kid podcast community.
Oh yeah,
universe.
I would be so down.
Love it.
So I guess just getting back to Terminator.
Yeah, let's just finish it up with this climax because,
I was gonna say, how do the effects at large hold up for people?
I think
at large,
we brought up how I think a lot of the action as far as the stunt work and even a lot of the models of the robot skeletons still look very impressive in motion. The stop motion Terminator exoskeleton walking. It has a much more specifically stop motion effect to it than I actually do remember. But it is charming seeing how again low budget stop motion that it is. And we also noticed that in the scenes when Schwarzenegger is doing stuff with his eye and stuff, his face very much just becomes a rubber mask. And you're oh, but it fits because he's just a robot wearing skin. And I'm but in the other scenes where he's very clearly a human person with actual
I think you nailed it when you said charming. Charming is exactly
it's cool.
Yeah, they're not amazing special effects by today's standards, certainly.
Yeah, they're not cheesy. They're not you're not rolling your eyes at them when you're noticing that they don't hold up.
But they're fun. They're cool. They're cool effects that aren't so distracting, and so frequent that it becomes a problem.
I mean, this was $6.4 million budget, at the time, but when you look at just what Stan Winston, what Stan Winston was able to do, with Terminator 2, I mean, just the jump in quality is just, it's masterful, and just what they pioneered in terms of, computer generated graphics and that sort of thing. But I think for the first one, I mean, I think a lot of the Terminators themselves, the Hunter Killers, all of that, with the laser blast, using a lot of the model work and rear projection, all of that looks really, really good. But yeah, I agree. The stuff where you actually see the close up of Arnold doing surgery on his face and all that sort of stuff. Yes, a lot of that just doesn't quite. It's not up to the same same quality, I guess.
The climax, though, does really work with these special effects, because seeing the endoskeleton design and the animatronic designs there, it does add to the sort of mounting tension and horror that Cameron is building up. And I think that everyone, especially Linda Hamilton, just sells the hell out of it.
Yeah, and especially because at that point when you're sorry if I cut you off there. If you're
No, you're good. You're good. I was going to trail off anyway.
Yeah, because especially at that point where it's like when the truck explodes and you think like, oh, they've defeated it, and then it emerges as just like this robot exoskeleton, and it's like keep chasing you, and then it does get into this thing where like they think they blow it up, and then you think that they've defeated it then, and then like it's just like a detached torso still chasing after you. It's like it goes to this idea that it's like you could do whatever you want to this thing, it's still gonna find ways to come after you.
Yeah.
And then that is what I think increases like the amount of tension, where it's like you can't just like blow it up and then think that it's gone.
Yeah, and I talk about this a lot in the commentary, and I won't get too into it now, but like wasn't expecting even to see an endoskeleton in this. That is an image that I had already always associated with Terminator 2. Did not realize it was present in this movie, and so when it came on screen, I was genuinely surprised. Like it was like an actual twist for me, which I think added to the fun a bit and made it a lot easier to forgive some kind of sillier like blue screen effects during that sequence.
I've noticed some of us are saying endoskeleton, some are saying exo. Like, what's the difference?
Okay. Exo is outside, endo is inside.
Exo would be outside.
Then I'm sorry for using endo then. Outdated terminology.
We have to kick you off the show now, Jordan. I'm sorry. That was the final straw.
I was saying exo more than anyone, so
I think so too. Yeah, I think that the ending is fun as far as the effects goes, but also I think I really like the little epilogue we get at the end.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I again just an example of them going farther with this movie than I was expecting. It's a nice little bow on it. I love the bit with the photograph that Kyle Reese was carrying around of Linda Hamilton. How do you think the movie kind of fares if it doesn't have that? Like, do you think that it's necessary, or do you think it's just like a last minute studio decision because they weren't quite happy with where they rolled credits?
Well, it is. It is that, but I do think that like it adds the sort of levity and the sort of like purposeful ending that a lot of this genre films that this movie was aping, a lot of Carpenter films, didn't always have.
Yeah, because there's a point where you expect like once she's defeated the Terminator and then like she's carried out on the stretcher, you would expect that could just be the end of the movie.
Yeah, she would just like make out with Kyle Reese again, and then they fucking roll credits or whatever.
Make out with his dead body.
Did he die?
Fucking with his dead body.
Yeah. I'll mention this really quickly, but there was a deleted scene that I found, and I don't think it's fully explained in Terminator 2, but this computer factory where the climax takes place in this deleted scene is revealed to be Cyberdyne Systems.
Yes.
Yeah. And because that was a big aha moment for me, because I was wondering, okay, so how in the sequel does Cyberdyne or Miles Dyson have possession of this ARM and neural processor to engineer what would become Skynet? This is how. So it's just it was a pretty cool shot too, because you see the guys cleaning up after they take Sarah away in the ambulance, and the camera just pans up, and it's like, oh, there's the sign. It's Cyberdyne Systems. Oh, well, why did they cut that? I thought that was actually.
And so they made Skynet. Is that what I'm?
So yes. Essentially, kind of the irony of this movie that I've actually realized years on is kind of, you see them always fighting these Terminators, and you wonder like, oh, but what does Skynet? Because Skynet's like kind of the big bad or whatever, and there's always different explanations. Like in T3, they're like, oh, Skynet software. In Terminator Genesis, they're like, oh, Skynet is Matt Smith. But yeah,
so stupid.
If you watch this movie, you realize that the chip and the arm come from this Terminator. This Terminator is Skynet. Like that's kind of the funny loop there. The same way that like, oh, John Connor sends back Kyle Reese to literally father him. Like this Skynet literally sends the Terminator back that will become itself. Like it's just kind of that irony of the perpetual loop.
Paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, because if Kyle never went back, John would never exist, and then if and
the Terminator didn't go back, Skynet wouldn't exist.
Skynet wouldn't exist, right?
Yeah. So I was making a joke. I was like, you know what? It would have been a fun idea if like the Terminator decided that like he needed to go all the way back to like when the first like fish grew legs and walked on land.
Again, becomes a problem because then there's no Skynet. Someone needs humans to make
Skynet. Computers.
Too far. All right. So that's
for your Christians, he goes back and kills Adam and Eve.
Oh.
Yes. Oh. Yes. That's not a theory.
Someone make Terminator versus Adam and Eve.
I will write that now.
So that's going to wrap us up for our discussion on Terminator. This was a host pick by Jack, and we are now in the summer months. We've slowed down to monthly episodes of the show as I try to actually finish a fucking script for the first time in a while. And
yes,
thank you, Jordan. That's what I need. That's amazing.
Yeah, from one screenwriter to another.
Hell yeah, man. So we're doing more host picks. So this next one is going to be Mike's, because that's the order. Mike, what do you have for us?
And I'm sorry that I have to do this bullshit to you guys again, but if I only get one chance, I gotta make it count. Jack, this is also Jack's fault, because for my birthday recently, he gifted me with this beautiful Blu-ray of another sleazy 80s sci-fi horror movie known as, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh!
Howard the Duck.
Oh,
so, yes,
boy.
we're going to Jack's favorite Marvel movie. He loves those comic book pictures.
If ever a movie was inevitable for this fucking show to cover.
And we will also be joined by my Cinemarketing co-host, Anthony Cilio, because he also has some words about this movie. So that'll be a fun time for nobody. But we'll make it fun for you.
Mark in the chat just says, "Oh no."
Yeah.
You know, I went with it first. It's
got
like
naked
we felt
dog
great disturbance in the
It was
force.
funny when Jack gave me this gift. I was like, I didn't even know that you knew that I've seen Howard the Duck ever. I think you just bought it on a whim.
At least
have you seen Howard the Duck?
I did, but
Okay.
I saw it the first time I had seen it by the time you gave it to me, but I had only watched it for like the first time like maybe a month before you gave it to me.
I think you'd mentioned it once, and I was like, okay, Howard the Duck. Mike likes bad movies.
Yeah.
Mark actually has provided a solid reminder here saying, "How was the drive-in?"
Oh yes, we didn't.
And we didn't get into that.
You guys were gonna go over that.
Yeah, we're if you guys have a few minutes, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So we left very late in the day. Because I had to get a car wash, so my car was
Mike
covered
does
in
this thing where he disappears whenever we're expecting him to be.
You guys text me
when he's needed.
So we left. It takes about, I don't know, 3 hours to get to the drive-in from where we are, and then we also stopped at Burger King, and then
got caught in like an hour and a half of traffic, like literally down the road from my apartment, like right after we left. So it was pretty rough.
Yeah. So we
right
got
from
to the
get-go.
theater like right when it started, but we got some time to wander around. We bought some VHSs. We bought movies that Lewis bought Rocky Horror on VHS. And
Nice.
Jack bought Batman '89 and
Risky Business,
Yeah.
Excalibur, and I now have an actual Terminator VHS from, I believe, 1985 awaiting me at home thanks to eBay.
Sweet.
And then, these guys bought VHSs that are cool and that they actually like, and I bought fucking Dick Tracy and Godzilla '98 because I was like, I'm never gonna watch these, so I might as well buy.
Viewing.
Yeah, I was like, I'm never gonna actually have a way to watch these, so I might as well just buy the stupidest ones I can find.
And you were like, set decoration, like this will be like
Yeah.
a thing that we can for cinema marketing, which I thought great idea. I am like at a point now, like I have like 6 Blu-rays coming this week. Like I can't keep accumulating more like
I know. I thought about
spacious
buying
physical
a
media.
VCR, but I'm like, no, this Criterion sale's already gonna cost me.
There's no space in New York City for VHS collecting. Like there's the infrastructure's not there.
Too bulky.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to nix that. But Terminator came on I think at like 9, and it was fine. Hard to see the screen. It's a very dark movie. It's really difficult to kind of like see what's going on.
Especially because it was at like dusk, so the sun was still setting when they started playing.
And we also like didn't bring like our own speakers for it because we were sitting outside. We didn't bring speakers and we couldn't quite hear it. We didn't know how to turn off Mike's headlights, so we couldn't sit in the car. It also gets freezing, even though it was horribly hot in New York. So like, I'm shivering. Mike is very out of it by the end of this movie. I think it's
there was a
safe
part
to
where I
say.
said to him, I was like, I'm trying to stand up, but I can't. But it was also a part of all of the alcohol and things that we were
consuming. Yes.
At the Gory Picture Show, there was always great drugs to take and brews to drink. It really was that.
I'm so glad people don't skip through the intro.
And then there was the second movie was Cherry 2000, and I said to them, I can't remember a fucking second of that movie.
I quite like that movie.
I like it a lot too.
Yeah, I think Mike's too hard on it.
No, it's not that I'm hard on it. It's just that, like, given the conditions I watched it under, I cannot recall a single thing that happened in it.
You were peeking.
Except for there's a part halfway through the movie where they're at like a party and they're doing the hokey pokey, and then I just laughed for like 10 minutes at the idea of the hokey pokey existing.
Mike was making hokey pokey jokes for literally the rest of the night, and I wanted to fucking kill myself. It during everything, like even after, like even during the next movie, like he would just start laughing. I'd be like, "What's going on? You're like the hokey pokey." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
No,
it's been like 2 hours.
But also at the next movie, which I think all of us were collectively asleep for the entire thing.
Also, I think the one that like me and you are probably the most excited for.
And, I mean, you were wrong to be so.
Yeah,
it was Robot Jocks by Stuart Gordon, and he's usually a hit at these drive-ins. But there was much less robots in it than I expected, and
much
a lot more of
jocks.
Military generals in boring set like boardrooms and whatever. I think I was asleep during most of it, and then I spent the next half of the movie just packing up all the stuff back into my car, and you guys were still asleep, and I was just waiting for you guys to just say like, "Oh, let's just go," and I was like, "Oh,
I mean,
thank
if
God."
we were asleep and we woke up at the hotel at the hostel, we would have been fucking thrilled. Yeah.
And then we got to the hostel, which we didn't see. We didn't check into before going to the theater, so we showed up at 4 a.m. and then we just like went to our room, which was behind a curtain and 2 bunk beds, and then we just slept there. And then the next morning, we got up and just left again. I didn't get a sense of what the place looked like at all.
The funniest thing that happened is you telling me about what your dad watches on the Smithsonian channel.
Oh, okay. So I have to tell this story now. Okay, so in between us waiting for the movie, because they take like an hour intermission in between every movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they show like fucking Goofy shorts and Looney Tunes shorts, which you'd probably love.
Yeah,
but
Scarlet.
I do.
But yeah, but
oh my God, I love them.
They played at 1:42, and like we're waiting for the last movie to start. And they're like, it's 2 a.m. and let's play fucking Looney Tunes shorts. I get the appeal, like, of doing it, like, at, like, an appropriate time of day, but, like, come the fuck on. Like, can we please?
And also, we were saying, I think me and you were saying, like, I don't think I like these Looney Tunes shorts where they just reenact classic literature.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of more the hitting each other with mallets type of cartoonist myself, but...
I didn't care about the Scarlet Pimpernel before or after that, yeah.
I did like the Goofy short. It was Goofy plays baseball, and I'm like, that's just pure slapstick at midnight. That's what I need right now.
I was also a little upset about that. It was because it was just Goofy. It was Goofy playing baseball with Goofy. Goofy was every player on the team. I'm gonna say it. It's not that realistic. I don't think it could really happen.
I'm just like, show us Duck-a-Muck and Duck Dodgers, and we're good.
Yeah, finally.
But yes, your dad. What did your dad do?
Yeah. So I was telling the story about what my dad watches, because I think there was a shot of like. During one of the drive-in ads, it was like an aerial shot of like some landscape, and you're like, oh, look at that aerial shot. And I'm like, oh, this reminds me of like what my dad watches every morning. And he's like, what does he watch? And I'm like, he watches this show called Aerial America on the Smithsonian Channel. And I described it to him, I was like, it's basically just every episode is just like some major state, and it's just aerial shots of the state and some narrator just reading off facts about the state and its history. And they laughed for I don't know how long. They were laughing like, this does not exist. This is not a real show.
My mom watched that.
Aerial America. He was laughing.
I was incredulous. I didn't believe it was real.
It's real.
That's serial killer shit. How do you sit down and just watch that? No, there are bodies in Mike's house. I believe this.
I showed him and Sarah an episode. Not the whole episode. I'm not my fucking... No. I just scrolled through just so they could get a sense of what it's like. And every time we cut through, it's just like, here's another overhead shot with the same boring narrator voice just droning on about the mansplaining the history of fucking Buffalo, New York.
It's crazy. And you say like he's reading a script, it just sounds like this old guy's fucking musings about this town. Like he's just kind of like...
There was one I walked in on my dad watching, and I was like, are you serious? Like, I had accepted at a point, I'm like, all right, whatever, this is what he watches. If he thinks this is educational, it helps him. There was one where it's like, and this was the home of Blackbeard the pirate. Some say Blackbeard's ghosts even haunts it to this day. I'm like, are you serious with this shit? Like, is this what you think is educational?
I think it's the TV equivalent of, like, you know how when a business is a front for like actual like drug things going down, it's a show equivalent of that, so they can put on that show and then so they can fund like nefarious dealings. So it's a mafia front.
Yeah, that's exactly like how they secure their funding for the next years. They're like, all the extra money we'll just spend on Aerial America.
It's all probably like subliminal messaging, like, this is a beautiful view of Waltham, Massachusetts, and its glorious fields. The vaccine is a lie. Here is
To make all their
Old North Church.
Yeah, you know what?
The election was stolen.
You know what else is weird? I feel like you could only have like 50 episodes of that show. Like, if you're doing one episode per state, you're gonna run out eventually. I feel like my dad.
You do provinces. You do Canada.
Oh, okay.
I feel like he's gone through the whole series at least, like, what has to feel like, you know, a dozen times just in the span of a year.
Well,
just give it if he watches it every day for like 5 hours. That's like what you get through like every 10 days is the series you watch it.
And then you want more.
To avoid risking any further Aerial America spoilers, I think we should move on to our plug section. We were so lucky to be joined by Brandon and Jordan from Varicon Video. Guys, where can everyone find you, and where can everyone find Varicon?
You can follow me on Twitter at the Brandon Hardy, or you can follow the show at Varicon Video on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, and you can follow me at Tall Guy Schmidt on Twitter. And I'm not on any of the other fun sites. Should we spoil what we might be covering in the near future, Brandon?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're about to embark on a mini series on adaptations of serials on film, movie serials, not breakfast serials.
I was really hoping that Captain Crunch the movie was coming.
No, I think Test Pattern's doing those.
The Captain Crunch Count Chocula crossover movie.
I would love
oh my God.
a Count Chocula movie, but it's just like Dracula and just about like real estate for some reason. Like, but it's just Count Chocula instead.
Kellogg's 2 Electric Blueberry Galoo.
No, but we're doing...
Restart the Dark Universe, but make it Frankenberry and Booberry. And
I would watch it. I would watch it.
I'm sorry, we keep interrupting you, Jordan.
No, it's okay. No, I was going to say, because the one we are starting with, because we're going to do like Mask of the Zorro, Sky Captain, The Shadow. But we are also going to be starting very soon. I think this month we're going to be recording this a movie Jack opened me up to, Flash Gordon from 1980.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say Dick Tracy.
Well, we might be doing a commentary on that.
Oh,
yeah. Because I have Jack's copy.
I think the three of us are gonna have an in-person viewing of the Varicon commentary, along with watching Dick Tracy.
I'm never watching Dick Tracy again. I'm gonna listen to.
I hope you do a good job then.
And
absolutely,
I will also out myself as a huge Sky Captain activist. And
that's the thing. My first watch, I didn't love it, and I think I've told you this, Jack. Because the CG, the uncanny valley of the CG turned me off, but I am willing to give it another try thanks to this podcast.
Watch it in black and white. That's all I'll say. Same with the Terminator. Terminator looks good in black and white. Everything looks good in black and white. Lewis,
Batman Returns.
I'm crazy, but
I know
I'm going to use.
I watch movies the way they were intended to be seen.
On your iPhone.
With iPhone?
On my fucking.
On multiple parts on TikTok as teenagers take videos of their MacBook screen.
On my SpongeBob SquarePants Game Boy Advance SP.
All right, boys, where can they find you?
I am Jack on 35mm on Instagram and Jack Patterson on Letterboxd.
I'm RMR Cyborg Mike on Twitter and Instagram. Follow my new podcast, Cinemarketing. We are at Cinemarket Pod on Twitter and Cinemarketing Podcast on Instagram. On Instagram, I started doing a little fun thing where I post pictures of like the big cardboard theater displays that I see in movie theaters.
Nice.
And so our next episode, we have our episode on Kangaroo Jack, which is out, and it's been out for a couple of weeks. We just recorded the episode on Godzilla 2014 with Lewis, and that should be up soon. And we are planning our third episode, which is going to be Space Jam with my good buddy Nate from Before the Cyborgs. Got me started. I know he's a big Space Jam activist, and I knew that if I was going to have him on the show, I was like, he has to be on this episode. and we're very excited about all that.
Right on. You can find me on Twitter at LewisJOtero or on Instagram at RMRouletteLewis. I have another podcast with another host on the show right now, Dr. Brandon Hardy. We do the Gory Picture Show. We just did an awesome episode with Jordan right here. Jordan.
We're so inbred around here.
It's all coming together. On Freaks, which I had such a great fucking time doing, and was so glad that I was able to do another podcast with you guys so soon. That's so much fucking fun. So yeah, go check that out on all podcasting services. You can find the show on Twitter at RMRoulette. You can go to patreon.com/RMRoulette. Subscribe, throw the show a few shekels, get yourself some bonus content, and really keep us going for a while, because believe it or not, it's not podcasting isn't free. There are expenses that are incurred. Dangerous times, folks. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And
thank you for having us.
Yes, this was a lot of fun.
And you know you're always welcome. If you see movies coming up you want to hop on, just let us know.
One may say they'll be back.
But for now, hasta la vista.
And real quick, thank you, Mark and Cody in the chat for hanging out.
Thanks,
really
Mark.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
You really made up for the lack of Jordan in the chat, which
but I will be back.
He will be back. All right, folks. We will see you in about 1 month with our episode on Howard the Duck. Until then,
get out.